Hi, I'm Cliff Christopher, the founder and president of Horizon Stewardship Company. The other day I had a phone call that was not unlike one I get just about every week. The pastor was sharing with me that he wanted to talk about the issue of whether or not the church should use outside assistance as they are planning a capital campaign for an additional facility onto their church. He said, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but he said, some of the people in my church are kind of feeling like we shouldn't hire somebody from outside our church to do this. I don't know anything about it. What would you say to them? Well, that's a speech I've given hundreds of times, and I'm not afraid to do it again. And happy to share with you the thought process I hope you would use if you find yourself in that predicament. You're looking at a campaign and wondering, do we really need a professional from the outside to come into our church to talk to us about how we should give our money? First of all, I would say to you that if you are not looking to raise more than 1 times your budget, there's a real good chance that you won't need outside counsel. Now, there are occasions to where, because of certain circumstances or missteps in the past, that outside counsel might be a wise investment. But generally speaking, if that's all you want to do, a good conversation with one of our strategists could probably give you a guide to accomplish exactly that on your own. And I'd encourage you just, to call one of those companies and ask them for such assistance. And frankly, you really shouldn't be charged for it. The other thing I would say to you that is said in about every stewardship piece I've ever read is that using outside counsel will raise 2 times more than what you would raise without it. Now understand there's no way to prove that. You can't run 2 different campaigns at the exact same time with the exact same number of people for the exact same project. You just can't do it. So there's no empirical way to prove it, but I believe it. I believe it because I have seen it from my own experience countless numbers of times to where a church would say, well, we didn't hire counsel last time, and when they worked with counsel the next time, they raised twice as much. Sometimes I've even seen them go back and say, well, after learning what we did, we'll do it on our own, and they raised half as much. I've never yet, in my 25 years of running Horizons, seen an instance to where a church exceeded on its own what it otherwise did before or after with counsel. So just financially speaking, an investment of $20,000 or $30,000, whatever it may be, in a fee is generally well worth it if you reap $500,000 or $1 million more. If you want to keep your pastor focused on where the pastor's strengths are, you probably need outside counsel. Capital campaigns are not something any pastor went to seminary to learn how to do. Very few, if any, are experienced in doing it. When you ask them to take leadership in a capital campaign, they have to take that leadership out of time they're putting into sermons, time they're putting into teaching, time they're putting into counseling, into writing, and to doing the things that they were trained to do and they do well. What generally happens is you then wind up with bad leadership being given to a capital campaign because they weren't experienced in leading that. And at the same time, the preaching and teaching and all of that gets even worse because they were stressed enormously in spending energy where they are not experienced to spend it. The next reason, and maybe it's the most important in my opinion, is that having outside counsel keeps the church unified. Capital campaigns are stressful. They raise the stress level within a church because victory and defeat are not defined until the end, and yet it's so significant. You either will build your sanctuary or you won't. You'll pay off your debt or you won't. It means a lot. And as you get close to the end, that stress level builds as people wonder if there'll be victory. And most of the time, the strategy is challenged. Someone will believe to save the church, I need to rise up and offer to take charge, to not take us this way, but another way. That challenge will always go to the pastor. Pastor has to then make a call. If you have outside counsel with the professional resume to back it up, that challenge goes to them. They stand between the pastor and the challenger, keeping the church itself unified. The last and final thing I'd mention to you is you need outside counsel if you think it is possible that something unplanned might occur in the life of the church. You know, when you work with outside counsel, these are persons that literally work with dozens upon dozens of churches every year, and some of them, like ours, have been doing that for 25 plus years. We work with thousands. There's not much that can happen that hasn't happened. When that outside event occurs, a hurricane, a tornado, or a pastor dies, or something occurs, we actually had a church burned to the ground, you're working with somebody who's made calls in the midst of that, and there's a real good chance they can make the right call for you. Experience does matter. Just some points for you to think about as you're considering whether to use or not use outside counsel.